The maid's daughter climbed into the Comatose Millionaire's bed. What happened next shocked everyone. Evelyn Parker was finishing cleaning the private room at Mercy General Hospital when she heard little footsteps in the hallway. Her heart froze when she realized her daughter Emma had managed to escape the waiting room and was running toward the restricted area. The 8-year-old girl, in her little purple dress and swinging braids, stopped in front of the slightly open door to the room where Richard Harrison had remained in a coma for 3 long months. Evelyn ran after her daughter, but it was already too late. "Emma, get out of there right now," whispered Evelyn, desperate. But the girl had already climbed onto the hospital bed and was gently holding the unconscious businessman's hand. Evelyn felt her legs tremble. If anyone found out, she would lose the job that supported them both. That's when something impossible happened. The monitors around the bed began to emit different signals. Richard's heart, which had been beating at a monotonous rhythm for weeks, began to accelerate. Nurse Nancy Wilson rushed into the room upon hearing the equipment alarms. Her eyes widened at the scene. An unknown child was holding the hand of the hospital's most important patient. "My God, what's happening here?" asked Nancy, immediately checking the monitors. Evelyn tried to pull Emma off the bed, but the girl resisted with surprising strength. "He's sad, Mommy. He needs company," said Emma, looking directly into her mother's eyes. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face. She knew she was in big trouble. Richard Harrison was the owner of one of the largest construction companies in the state of New York, and his family would not tolerate an intrusion like that. Dr. William Mitchell, the neurologist in charge of the case, quickly arrived at the room. Having treated coma patients for years, he had never witnessed such a sudden change in vital signs. "His brain waves have completely changed in the last 5 minutes," said the doctor, analyzing the graphs. What exactly happened here? Nancy explained about the child, but the doctor was more interested in the data he saw on the screen. For the first time in months, Richard showed significant brain activity. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Evelyn hugged Emma, preparing to leave there forever. But Dr. Williams stopped her. "Wait, you can stay a few more minutes. I want to observe what happens." Emma returned to the bedside and naturally began talking to Richard as if he could hear her. "Hi, Uncle Richard. It's me, Emma. Mommy has been cleaning your house for a long time. You were always kind to me." Evelyn's eyes widened. Emma had visited the mansion only a few times when she had no one to stay with, but apparently she had formed a connection with the boss that Evelyn knew nothing about. The monitors continued to show unusual activity. Dr. William decided to allow the child to stay a few more minutes, under supervision. Over the next half hour, Emma told stories about the mansion's garden, about the little birds that visited the porch, about a wooden swing that Richard had ordered built. Evelyn listened to every word in astonishment. Her daughter knew details about the property that even she didn't know. "How do you know about the swing, Emma?" asked Evelyn, intrigued. "Uncle Richard took me there one day, when you were busy. He said he always wanted to have a daughter to play in the garden." The girl's words echoed through the quiet room. Evelyn had never heard the boss talk about family or children. She always saw him as a lonely man, dedicated only to business. When it was time to leave, Emma said goodbye to Richard with a little kiss on his forehead. At that very moment, a tear rolled from the corner of his eye. "Dr. William, look!" Nancy pointed to the patient's face. The doctor remained silent for a few seconds, processing what he had just seen. In his entire career, he had never witnessed such a clear emotional response from a patient in a deep coma. "Evelyn, what's your phone number?" asked the doctor. "I'd like you to come back tomorrow." During the bus ride home, Emma wouldn't stop talking about Richard. She told how he always smiled when he saw her, that he liked to hear her stories about school, that he had promised to teach her to play the piano when she grew up. Evelyn felt her heart tighten. Why had she never noticed this closeness between the two? She was always so focused on work, afraid of being a bother, that she didn't notice what was happening around her. The next morning, Evelyn took Emma back to the hospital. Dr. William was waiting for them with other specialists. "We'd like to run some tests," explained the doctor. to see if Emma's presence really affects Mr. Richards' neurological state. For 2 hours, they monitored Richard's vital signs with Emma near and far from the bed. The results were impressive. When the girl was present, all brain functions showed significant improvement. Dr. William decided to establish a protocol of daily visits. Emma would spend 1 hour a day with Richard, always supervised. In the following days, Evelyn noticed subtle changes in her daughter's behavior. Emma was calmer, more mature. She spoke about Richard with genuine affection, as if he were a beloved grandfather. "Mommy, Uncle Richard told me he feels very lonely," Emma said one afternoon. "But he's sleeping, sweetie. How can he talk to you?" "He talks here," Emma pointed to her heart, "just like you do when you're sad." Evelyn hugged her daughter, moved by her sensitivity. At 8 years old, Emma demonstrated a rare empathy, an ability to perceive feelings that many adults did not possess. A week later, Catherine Harrison arrived at the hospital unannounced. Rodrigo's wife had spent the last few months traveling through Europe, trying to forget the tragedy that had befallen her family. Upon entering the room and seeing an unknown child holding her husband's hand, Catherine exploded in fury. "Who is this child? What is she doing here?" she shouted, calling for security. Evelyn became desperate. She tried to explain, but Catherine wouldn't listen. "You're using my sick husband to deceive people. You probably want money," accused Catherine. Dr. William arrived quickly, trying to calm the situation. "Mrs. Harrison, you need to understand her presence has caused extraordinary changes in your husband's condition." "That's ridiculous. Some random child can't cure anyone?" Catherine demanded that Evelyn and Emma be banned from the hospital. "But Doctor," William showed the charts that proved Richard's improvement. "Look here," he pointed to the brainwaves. "In the last few days, he has shown more brain activity than in the previous 3 months." Catherine analyzed the data in silence. She was an intelligent woman, with a degree in business administration, accustomed to making decisions based on facts, but accepting that a poor child could help her husband wounded her pride. "I want to speak with this woman alone," said Catherine, pointing to Evelyn. In the hallway, away from Emma, Catherine confronted Evelyn directly. "What do you want? Money? Recognition? Are you using your daughter to take advantage of the situation?" Evelyn took a deep breath before answering. She had worked at the Harrison mansion for 5 years, always with discretion and honesty. "Mrs. Harrison, I have never asked for anything beyond my salary. Emma genuinely likes your husband. If you don't want her to visit, I will respect your decision." The simplicity of the answer caught Catherine off guard. She had expected defensiveness, justifications, pleas. But Evelyn merely accepted the decision with dignity. That afternoon, Catherine was alone with Richard for the first time in months. She held his hand, talked about the trip, about the business matters she was handling, but the monitors remained unchanged. For 3 days, Emma didn't visit the hospital. Evelyn noticed her daughter was quieter, constantly asking about Richard. "Is he better, Mommy? Does Uncle Richard remember me?" At the hospital, Dr. William Mitchell observed with concern that Richard's vital signs had returned to their previous pattern. Brain activity had decreased drastically. Nancy commented to other nurses about the strange coincidence. Ever since the girl stopped visiting, the patient seemed to be regressing. Catherine also noticed the difference. Richard seemed more distant, more deeply asleep. She began to question her hasty decision. On Thursday, Dr. William Mitchell called Evelyn. "I'd like you to come back. Richard's condition has worsened since Emma stopped coming." Evelyn explained about Catherine's prohibition, but the doctor insisted. "I'll talk to her. This is a medical matter now." When Dr. William Mitchell presented the data to Catherine, she couldn't deny the evidence. Emma's presence really affected Richard's condition in a measurable way. "I don't understand how this is possible," admitted Catherine. "Neither do I," replied the doctor, "but we have to accept the facts." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Catherine reluctantly authorized the return of the visits, but imposed conditions. She would always be present and would control all interactions. On the first day back, Emma entered the room shyly, intimidated by Catherine's presence. But upon seeing Richard, she ran to the bed, naturally. "Hi, Uncle Richard. I missed you. I dreamed you were sad, because I didn't come to see you." Catherine watched every move the girl made closely. Emma talked to Richard as if chatting with a dear friend, telling him about school, about a kitten she had seen on the street, about a drawing she had made for him. When Emma pulled a crumpled paper from her backpack and showed a drawing of a house with 2 people in the garden, Catherine felt something strange in her chest. "Who are these people in the drawing?" asked Catherine. "It's me and Uncle Richard playing on the swing. He said one day we would plant flowers together." Catherine observed the drawing carefully. Emma had depicted specific details of the mansion's garden that only someone who had been there could know. That night, Catherine went to the mansion for the first time in months. She walked through the garden, looking for signs of Emma's presence. In the back corner, she found the wooden swing she had never noticed before. The discovery intrigued her. When had Richard had that built? Why had he never mentioned it? The next day, she questioned Evelyn about Emma's visits to the mansion. "She only came a few times when I had no one to leave her with," explained Evelyn. "She was always quiet, playing in the garden while I worked." "And did my husband interact with her?" Evelyn hesitated before answering. "Yes, ma'am. He seemed to enjoy her company. He always asked about her school, about her little friends." Catherine realized she didn't know this side of her husband. Richard had always seemed focused only on business, distant from family matters. They had tried to have children for years, without success. After several failed treatments, Richard suggested they stop trying. Catherine had always believed he didn't care about the issue. Now, seeing his connection with Emma, she began to question her assumptions. During the following visits, Catherine observed every detail of the interaction between Emma and Richard. The girl had a tender way of holding his hand, whispered little stories softly, sang children's songs. One day, Emma brought a book from school and read a story aloud. Catherine noticed the monitors showed spikes of activity during certain parts of the narration. "Emma, have you read to him before?" asked Catherine. "Yes, at home. Uncle Richard likes the story of the 3 little pigs. He always laughs when the wolf blows the houses down." Catherine felt her heart tighten. She had never seen Richard truly laugh. In recent years, he seemed burdened, stressed with business. That week, Catherine made a discovery that would change everything. Searching for documents in Richard's office, she found a drawer she had never opened. Inside was a collection of drawings made by Emma, all carefully kept and dated. There were also Polaroid photos of the girl playing in the garden, always with Richard smiling in the background. An unfinished letter was hidden among the drawings. "Dear Emma, you brought a joy to my life that I didn't know was missing. Your visits are the best part of my days. I wish Catherine could get to know you better." Catherine read the letter 3 times, with tears in her eyes. Richard had found in Emma the daughter they never had, and kept it a secret to avoid hurting her. The next day, Catherine arrived at the hospital with a completely different attitude. "Emma, I would like to get to know you better," she said, kneeling beside the bed. "Can you tell me about your games with Uncle Richard?" Emma was surprised, but soon became excited to talk about her special friend. "He taught me how to plant seeds, and he said when I grow up, he'll give me a real piano to play." Catherine listened to every word with renewed attention, seeing Richard through Emma's eyes, a kind, caring man who genuinely cared about a child's well-being. Over the next few weeks, Catherine spent more time at the hospital, not just watching Emma's visits, but joining them. She began to understand the special dynamic that existed. Emma treated Richard like a loving grandfather, sharing secrets, asking for advice even though he couldn't respond. Catherine realized the girl truly believed he was listening to her. One day, Dr. William called Catherine for a private conversation. "The neurological signals keep improving. There is a real possibility of recovery, even if gradual." "What does that mean exactly?" "That he might be more aware than we think. Emma's presence may be creating a specific neurological stimulus that favors recovery." Catherine left the conversation reflecting on the previous weeks. If Richard was indeed conscious at some level, what had he thought about her prolonged absence, about her initial reaction to Emma? That afternoon, for the first time, Catherine held Richard's hand while Emma sang a song. "Richard, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. I didn't understand how much Emma means to you," she whispered. To her surprise, she felt a slight pressure on her hand. She looked at the monitors and saw a change in the brain patterns. "Dr. William," she called, emotional. The doctor arrived quickly and observed the data. "This is very promising. Keep talking to him." Catherine began to tell Richard about the drawings she had found, about how guilty she felt for not noticing his friendship with Emma. Emma listened silently, holding Richard's free hand. "Uncle Richard, Mrs. Catherine is nice. She can play with us when you wake up." For a moment all three remained silent. Catherine felt a connection she had never experienced before, not just with Richard, but with Emma too. Evelyn watched everything from the corner of the room, moved to see her daughter finally being accepted. That evening, Catherine invited Evelyn and Emma to dinner at her home. It would be the first time they were all together outside the hospital environment. During dinner at the mansion, Emma showed Catherine all the little spots Richard had shown her: the swing, the vegetable garden, the tree where the little birds made their nests. "He said this house was very quiet before I arrived," Emma shared innocently. Catherine understood that Richard had felt lonely, even though he was married. They lived like polite strangers, each focused on their own activities. "Emma, would you like to come here more often? We can take care of the garden together until Uncle Richard gets better." Emma's eyes sparkled with joy. "Can we plant the flowers he wanted?" "Of course we can." Evelyn watched the scene with a full heart. She never imagined her daughter could be accepted in that way by a family so different from their own. In the following weeks, a routine was established. In the morning, Emma visited Richard at the hospital. In the afternoon, she went to the mansion with Evelyn, where Catherine waited for them to tend the garden together. Emma taught Catherine the things Richard had told her about the plants. Catherine discovered a side of herself she never knew, a maternal patience and tenderness she had never explored. One day, while planting roses, Emma asked a question that caught Catherine off guard. "Mrs. Catherine, why don't you and Uncle Richard have children?" Catherine stopped digging for a moment, searching for the right words for a child. "Sometimes things don't happen as we plan, dear. But you can have children of the heart, like my teacher said at school." The simplicity of Emma's answer touched Catherine deeply. Perhaps they had already found that. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, 2 months after the regular visits began, something extraordinary happened. During a rainy afternoon at the hospital, Emma was reading to Richard when she noticed his fingers twitch slightly. "Mrs. Catherine, look!" shouted Emma, pointing at Richard's hand. Catherine was talking with Dr. William in the hallway and ran to the room. They watched carefully and saw small involuntary movements in Richard's fingers. "This could be a sign that he's trying to wake up," the doctor explained, clearly excited. In the following days, the movements became more frequent. Richard moved his fingers, slightly furrowed his brows, and sometimes seemed to try to open his eyes. Emma was thrilled with every little bit of progress. "He can hear us. I knew he could hear us." Dr. William increased the frequency of the neurological exams. All indicators pointed to a gradual recovery, something that had seemed impossible just months before. One morning, as Emma held Richard's hand and told him about a little bird she had found in the garden, something magical happened. Richard gently squeezed her hand. Emma shouted with joy, calling for Catherine and the doctors. When everyone arrived in the room, Richard had slightly opened his eyes. "Richard," called Catherine, her voice trembling. He turned his head toward the voice, his eyes still half closed. "Emma," he whispered with difficulty. Everyone in the room fell silent. Richard's first word after months in a coma had been Emma's name. The girl approached the bed, beaming. "Hi, Uncle Richard. I knew you would wake up." Richard smiled weakly and tried to lift his hand to touch Emma's face. Catherine helped him with the movement, tears in her eyes. Dr. William was moved. In all his career, he had never witnessed such a touching recovery. In the following weeks, Richard gradually regained awareness. Her first concern was always Emma, how she was doing, if she was doing well in school, if she had taken care of the garden. Catherine watched these interactions with a mixture of gratitude and reflection. Her husband's recovery was closely tied to the love he felt for Emma. During a private conversation with Evelyn, Catherine made a decision that would surprise everyone. "Evelyn, I'd like to make a proposal. How about you and Emma move into the mansion? We have plenty of rooms, and Emma could be closer to Richard during his recovery." Evelyn was speechless. She had never imagined such a possibility. "Mrs. Catherine, that's very generous, but it's not generosity, it's necessity. Richard needs Emma, and I've learned that I need both of you too." After much discussion, Evelyn accepted the proposal. It would be a temporary situation until Richard fully recovered, but it represented a radical change in their lives. The move to the mansion was a milestone in Richard's recovery. Being able to see Emma every day, follow her activities, and be part of her routine significantly accelerated his progress. Catherine discovered she enjoyed having the house full of life. Emma's laughter, her constant questions, her stories from school, filled a void she didn't even know existed. Evelyn, in turn, found in Catherine an unexpected friend. Despite their social differences, the two women shared concern for Richard and affection for Emma. 3 months after waking from the coma, Richard was doing physical therapy daily. Emma accompanied him in all the exercises, creating games to make rehabilitation more fun. "Let's pretend you're a robot learning to walk again," Emma suggested, making Richard laugh. Dr. William commented that he had never seen a patient recover with such good humor. Emma's presence turned every challenge into an adventure. One afternoon in the garden, while Emma was helping Richard water the plants, Catherine made a decision that had been maturing in her heart. "Richard, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, calling Evelyn over too. "What is it?" asked Richard, worried by Catherine's serious tone. "I want to officially adopt Emma. I want her to be our real daughter." The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Emma stopped playing and looked at the adults, trying to understand what was happening. "Does that mean I can stay here forever?" asked Emma, her eyes shining. "If you want to, and if your mother agrees," replied Catherine, looking at Evelyn. Evelyn was crying. She had never imagined her daughter could have an opportunity like that. "Emma will always be my daughter," said Evelyn, "but if you really want to be a family—" "We want you to be part of it too," interrupted Richard. "You are essential to Emma, and Emma is essential to me. It makes no sense to separate you." The proposal was revolutionary. It wasn't just about adoption, but about creating an expanded family where Evelyn would continue to be Emma's mother, but Catherine and Richard would also take on that role. Emma didn't hesitate in her response. "I want to. That way I can have 2 mothers and a father." From that day on, the legal processes to formalize the situation began. It would be a shared adoption, with Evelyn retaining primary custody, but Catherine and Richard having parental rights and responsibilities. During the process, which lasted months, the family dynamic established itself naturally. Emma had her school routine, but spent afternoons and weekends at the mansion. Evelyn worked part-time for Catherine, but now as the house manager, not just an employee. Richard fully recovered and returned to business, but with a different perspective. He reduced his work hours to spend more time with Emma. On Emma's first birthday after the adoption was finalized, they organized a garden party at the mansion. School friends, Evelyn's co-workers, neighbors, everyone celebrated together. During the party, Emma gave a speech that moved everyone. "I want to thank you for giving me the most special family in the world. I have Mommy Evelyn, who taught me to be strong. I have Mommy Catherine, who taught me to be brave. And I have Daddy Richard, who taught me that family isn't just who you're born with, but who you choose to stay with." There wasn't a dry eye at the party. The journey that had begun with a curious little girl climbing onto a comatose man's hospital bed had turned into the purest love story any of them had ever experienced. 2 years later, Richard and Catherine decided to establish an educational foundation in Emma's name. The project offered scholarships to underprivileged children, but also created a mentorship program where kids from different social backgrounds studied and played together. Emma, now 10 years old, became the foundation's youth ambassador, sharing her story to inspire other families to open their hearts to unconditional love. Evelyn found her calling working with other mothers in difficult situations, helping them navigate adoption and childcare processes. The foundation grew and became a national benchmark for inclusive education. Hundreds of children benefited, but it had all started with an 8-year-old girl who simply wanted to keep someone company who seemed sad. During an interview for a television program about unconventional families, the host asked Emma what the most important moment of her life had been. "It was when I climbed onto Uncle Richard's hospital bed," she answered without hesitation. "I didn't know I was saving him. I thought I was saving myself because I was sad too." The answer surprised the adults. Emma had never mentioned feeling sad back then. "Why were you sad, sweetheart?" asked Catherine. "Because Mommy Evelyn worked so much and was always tired, and I could see she worried about me. But she couldn't play with me like other moms. When I found Uncle Richard, I realized he needed affection too, just like me." Evelyn hugged her daughter, deeply moved to discover that Emma had noticed her struggles even at such a young age. "And now you're not sad anymore?" asked the host. "Now I'm happy, because I helped 3 people not be sad alone," replied Emma, looking at her 3 parental figures. The interview aired and touched millions of people. The foundation received donations from all over the country, and dozens of families reached out wanting to participate in the adoption and mentorship programs. 5 years after waking from the coma, Richard was fully recovered and happier than he had ever been. His company was thriving, but he had learned to balance work and family. Catherine discovered that being a mother was her true calling. Besides Emma, she and Richard became temporary foster parents to other at-risk children, always with Evelyn's support. The mansion that was once silent was now always filled with laughter, music, Emma's friends, and foundation meetings. It was exactly what Richard had dreamed of while in a coma, a home full of life and love. One Sunday afternoon, 5 years after that first meeting in the hospital, the family was gathered in the garden. Emma, now a 13-year-old teenager, was playing the piano for a group of children from the foundation. Richard held Catherine's hand, watching the scene with deep gratitude. "Can you imagine where we'd be if Emma hadn't walked into that room?" asked Catherine. "I'd rather not imagine," replied Richard. "She saved my life in more ways than I can count." Evelyn approached, bringing lemonade for everyone. "Emma saved all of us," she said. "She taught me that family isn't about money or social status. It's about loving without conditions." Emma finished playing and ran to the group of adults. "What are you talking about?" she asked, curious as always. "About how you changed our lives," replied Catherine, kissing the girl's forehead. "I didn't change anything," protested Emma. "I just held out my hand to someone who needed it. Anyone would do that." "No, sweetheart," said Richard. "Not everyone would have the courage and heart you had. You taught us that miracles exist, and that sometimes they come in the form of an 8-year-old girl in a purple dress." Emma laughed, remembering that distant day at the hospital. "That dress still fits me, you know. Mom Evelyn kept it. We should donate it to the Foundation's museum," suggested Catherine. "It's an important historical piece." "Good idea," agreed Emma. "That way other girls can know they don't need to be big to make big differences." The conversation continued until dusk, punctuated by the laughter of children playing in the garden. Every sound was music to Richard's ears, who had learned to cherish the small moments of happiness. When the visitors left and the house grew quiet, the family gathered in the living room to watch a movie. Emma was nestled between Catherine and Richard on the sofa, while Evelyn straightened up the kitchen. "Parker Harrison family, are you ready for Finding Nemo?" asked Emma, already putting the DVD in the player. "Parker Harrison?" asked Richard, amused. "It's our official last name. I mixed them both so no one would be left out." Catherine and Richard exchanged emotional glances. Even at 13, Emma kept thinking of ways to include and unite people. During the movie, Emma fell asleep leaning on Richard's shoulder. Catherine covered the girl with a blanket, and the 3 adults stayed there watching the peaceful breathing of the child who had transformed their lives. "You know what amazes me the most?" whispered Evelyn. "She never talks about what she gained from all this. She always talks about what she gave." "It's the mark of special people," replied Richard. "They change the world without realizing they're doing something extraordinary." That night, when everyone was already asleep, Richard wrote in his diary, a habit he had developed after waking from the coma, Today marks 5 years since Emma held my hand for the first time. 5 years since a brave girl decided that a stranger in a coma deserved company. If I could go back in time and choose how my life would unfold, I wouldn't change a single detail, because it was exactly that path that brought me home. Not to a house of bricks and wood, but to the home of the heart where my true family lives. The next morning, Emma woke up early to help Evelyn prepare breakfast. It was a Sunday tradition. Emma chose the menu and everyone cooked together. "Mom, Evelyn, do you think Uncle Richard dreamed about me when he was sleeping in the hospital?" asked Emma, beating eggs for pancakes. "Why do you want to know that?" "Because sometimes I dreamed about him before I met him. In the dream he was in a very big house, but he was alone, and I always felt sad when I woke up." Evelyn stopped stirring the batter and looked at her daughter with surprise. "You never told me about these dreams." "It was very strange. How could I dream about someone I didn't know?" Evelyn hugged Emma, moved once again by her daughter's special sensitivity. "Maybe you two were destined to meet," she said. "Sometimes the heart knows things the mind doesn't understand yet." When Catherine and Richard came down for coffee, they found mother and daughter talking about dreams and destiny. "What are you talking about?" asked Catherine, saying good morning with little kisses. Emma shared about the dreams, leaving Richard thoughtful. "You know, Emma, I also dreamed during the coma. I dreamed that someone held my hand and told me stories. I never saw the person's face, but the voice was soft and caring." "That was me," exclaimed Emma, excited. "I knew you could hear me." Breakfast turned into a memory session, where each shared their recollections of those first days of meeting. Evelyn told about the fear she felt when she saw Emma in the hospital bed. Catherine admitted that her first reaction was jealousy and insecurity. Richard revealed that, even unconscious, he felt a caring presence that comforted him. "And you, Emma?" asked Catherine. "What did you feel on that first day?" "I felt that I found someone who needed me as much as I needed him," replied Emma, with the maturity that always surprised the adults. "And I felt that our family was incomplete until that moment." Emma's words echoed around the table, creating a moment of emotional silence. "Our family," repeated Richard, savoring the words. "I never get tired of hearing that." After breakfast, they decided to visit the hospital where it all began. It was another family tradition. Once a year, they brought sweets for the medical team that had cared for Richard. At the hospital, they were received like celebrities. Dr. William, now director of the neurology department, always eagerly awaited the annual visit. "Emma, how is our little miracle?" greeted the doctor. "I'm well, Dr. William, and I brought brigadeiros made by me." The doctor accepted the sweets affectionately, remembering the uncertain days when Richard was in a coma. "You know, Emma, you changed how we treat coma patients here at the hospital. Now we have an assisted visitation program with children for other patients." "Really?" asked Emma, interested. "Really. We discovered that the presence of children, especially those with an emotional connection to the patient, can accelerate neurological recovery." Richard felt proud knowing that their experience had contributed to medicine. "Can we visit some patients today?" asked Emma. Dr. Williams smiled. Even as a teenager, Emma maintained the same generous heart she had as a child. "Of course, but only with the family's permission." For 2 hours, Emma visited 3 coma patients, always accompanied by her adoptive parents and the medical team. With each one, she talked naturally, told stories, held their hands. One family, visibly moved, thanked her for the visit and asked Emma to come back other times. "She brought more hope in 2 hours than we've had in weeks," said the mother of a 15-year-old boy who had suffered an accident. On the way back home, the family discussed the possibility of Emma including hospital visits in the foundation's schedule. "It would be a natural extension of our work," agreed Catherine. "Children helping children." "But only if you want to, Emma," emphasized Evelyn. "We don't want you to feel obligated." "I want to," replied Emma enthusiastically. "If I can help other families stay together like ours did, then I want to do it." End of story. So, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments. Do you believe a child's love can really wake someone from a coma? Leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart.